Welcome to my True Scary Story YouTube channel. If you're new to Sinful's horror stories, please be sure to subscribe now for future content. And if you would like a story of your own featured on an upcoming video, shoot me an email from the email in the description box below. Please make sure to leave a like on this video as it will help perform at a much higher level and it will reach that many more people. Sit back, relax, enjoy, stay sinful. I originally posted this on No Sleep because I didn't realize that it was a place for fictional stories. This story is true, so I don't feel that it belonged there. Anyways, this is my story. We witnessed the aftermath of a murder. It was the dead in the middle of summer, and this night was particularly hot and humid. My friends and I were staying up all night as we did many times, especially in the summertime. I was 15 at the time. I'm 23 now, a rather petite female. Anyways, my friends were staying over for the weekend, and we were all out in my pool house. We usually hung out in there because it was like having our own house all to ourselves with no parents, although my mom would often check in. I lived out in the country, a slightly rural area but a small city within a 10-minute drive and a small 24-hour cafe within a 10-minute walk away. We had been sneaking drinks all day and were pretty buzzed when we decided to take the walk to the all-night cafe just after midnight. We collected ourselves and set off giggling down the street en route of the cafe. Halfway down the street we noticed a man and woman out in the pitch black darkness, arguing rather loudly and pushing each other. We were at the top of the road and the driveway went down a steep hill and was very long, so their view of us was distorted. We paused for a moment and watched as the arguing seemed to calm down, and the two went inside the house. At this point my friend Jennifer realized that she had left her wallet, so we would have to turn back to get it as she was paying, and the only one with cash on her at the time. We all begrudgingly turned around and headed back to get her wallet, giggling and joking about the man and woman we saw arguing, trying to guess what they might have been arguing about. We came up with some pretty stupid things, the things you might expect a teenage girl to come up with. It didn't take long for Jen to grab her wallet, and we were on our way back within 15 minutes. We had just made it halfway back up the street when we saw a van pulling out of the driveway that we had seen the couple arguing at. It pulled out and drove by us very slowly. We were super freaked out but tried to remain calm as it drove on past us, picking up speed as it drove away. We finally made it to the restaurant and ordered. We spent some time in there talking, laughing, and just having fun, and by the time we were leaving, the whole couple arguing thing was already gone from our minds. It wasn't until we were turning down the dark street that I live on that we remembered the creepy guy in the van and the events that had transpired earlier. This is when my other friend Kara points out that the van is still gone. She said, "Maybe we should go peek in the window, see what she's doing." We had come up with the idea that she was probably cheating, so this was the reason for Kara's bright idea. Even though I was a little nervous, I didn't want to seem like a scared little girl, so I went along with it. We head down along the side of the drive, as to stay in the shadows and hide. We were stumbling and giggling and shushing each other all the way down. Kara speaks up and says she'll go peek while we keep lookout. That's when I notice Kara backing away slowly with a horrible look on her face, tears streaming down her cheeks. She clasps her hand around her mouth and looks at Jen and I and mouths, "Let's go, right now." We stand there confused as she grabs our wrists and says, "Run, now!" We all take off asking her what the fuck is going on as we run. "That lady," she says. "I saw her, she was laying on the staircase, covered in blood." "Oh my God, she was dead," Kara said. Neither of us believed her. We gave each other that look and broke from her grasp, sneaking back down to the drive to have a peek for ourselves, and that's when we realized I should have listened to Kara. I'll never forget what I saw. It looked nothing like the stuff you see in horror movies. The blood was dark and everything looked surreal. Time stopped momentarily, but Jennifer's piercing scream brought me back to reality. We darted back up the hill screaming. Kara stood there waiting, but before we could speak, we noticed the van steadily approaching us. He must have seen us coming out of his yard, so we continued to run as fast as we could, but he jerked the van around in time and caught up to us just as we were running through my yard. He saw us. He continued driving extremely slow, and then turned around and drove back, heading back to his house. We were freaking out about what to do. "Do you guys think she was for sure dead?" I asked him as Kara proceeded to say. She had a kitchen knife protruding from her chest, and blood was streaked on the walls and floor. So yes, I'm pretty sure she's dead. We were too scared to tell my mom, too scared to call the cops, because we didn't know how to explain what we saw. We were just stupid teenagers. Had I known what I know now, I would have called the cops right away, but we didn't call them at all. We stayed in pure terror the remainder of the night, and we all swore that we would never tell anyone, but I decided to break that promise today because it's taken its toll on me over the years. I was petrified that entire summer. I was so scared that that man was going to come for me, but thankfully he moved out of the house near the end of the summer. Before he moved, I'd often see him drive by my house so slowly, day or night. I made eye contact with him once, and he gave me the creepiest, most unsettling look, smirking as if he knew my dilemma, that he knew I'd never tell, and that he was free to do whatever. His eyes cold and soulless. I was so happy that day I saw a for sale sign in his yard. I never heard anything about the woman. I searched the missing people's reports in our town for years to no avail. Jennifer, Kara, and I never mentioned it again, and life went on as if it never happened. But the fact remains that we all witnessed the aftermath of a murder, and somewhere out there the killer roams free. So the initial encounter may not be that creepy in itself. It was for me at the time, but what happened after is what makes it creepy. This was a long time ago. I was probably around 8 years old, and I'm 27 now. We were moving house, and the owner of the moving company, it was a small company, so he did a lot of it himself, was at our house. I got this horrible feeling about him. I don't know what it was, but I did not want this man anywhere near my mother. I put myself directly between him and my mom while they were speaking, my back to her, with my arms reaching around her behind me and kind of pushing her back. I don't know what a little 8-year-old girl was going to do if anything happened, but I didn't even want this man talking to my mom, never mind standing near her. Afterwards, my mom asked me about why I was being so strange while he was there, and I told her that I didn't like him. After we had moved, he actually stole some of our furniture, and we were done with him. We heard through someone who also knew him that he had shot and killed his wife and then himself in front of his twin daughters. Those poor children. Ever since then, my parents have listened to me when I say I don't like someone, or I get a bad vibe from them, and I definitely trust my gut when it tells me something's off. So I'm a 21-year-old female house-sitting this house and watching 2 dogs for my sister's boyfriend's aunt. I don't know them too well personally, but decided the money was worth it. Yesterday I found a camera in the living room. I was not told about being watched. Not to say I was doing anything weird in the living room, but it still creeps me out that I was being watched without my knowledge. I looked up the model number and looked to see what the lights on the camera meant. When it's blinking blue, then I'm actively being viewed. Now all I can notice is how countless times a day the light starts blinking blue, and I know I'm being watched. They want me to stay here with the dogs, and I have 2 more days to go, but I feel so unsettled. So this happened about 10 years ago. I showed up at a friend's house at 6 p.m. to play some D&D after we'd been planning on it earlier that day using Facebook chat. I'd gotten caught up with something right up until it was time to head out, and hadn't checked my phone for several hours, and it turned out my friend who was hosting was running late and wouldn't be getting there until 7 p.m. So I showed up by myself and knocked on his door. After a few minutes of no answer, I finally checked the messages and saw the time change. Right as I was about to head back to my car, someone else showed up. I knew the guy from different circles, and we talked a few times before, so we struck up a conversation and I found he wasn't there to play. He just had to talk to my friend who was hosting the game. Seemed normal enough for the first 15 minutes or so, but then he started to act very odd. He started to pace back and forth and got a wild look in his eyes, kind of like he was nervous about something. I asked what was up, and he almost jumped back with his hands up and said, "You need to calm down." His eyes were wide as he said this to me. I was confused and asked what he meant, and he just started shaking his head and repeated himself, "Really? No, you just need to calm down." And he seemed a bit more agitated while staring at me. This was odd and kind of creepy to me, so I said, "All right, I'm calm," and I just backed up and pulled my phone before pointedly ignoring him. He seemed to calm down at this, and there was just an awkward silence for a couple of minutes before we heard someone else drive up and get out of their car. It was about 6:30 at this point, and one of my friends from the group chat who thought they were running late for the game came up. He asked what was happening, and the other guy immediately pointed at me and said, "Hey, you need to calm him down. He's acting crazy." There was some clarifying questions, and the other guy expounded on how I was acting angry. My friend and I exchanged raised eyebrows, and I just shrugged while shaking my head, feeling relieved that someone else was finally here. He started to laugh a bit at the absurdity of the situation, but then engaged the other guy in some conversation. It was about 6:40 p.m. at this point, and I'd had enough and just decided to go wait into my car until other people started to arrive. Finally, other people started showing up, and I went inside, and once the other guy had left, my friend came up to ask the whole story from my side. He laughed as I told him what happened, not in a condescending way, but a "wait, really?" kind of way. He still thinks it's one of the weirdest yet funniest absurd situations he's come across. I still remember the look in the other guy's eyes. His behavior wasn't normal and very scary. Thank you guys for watching and listening to the end. If you would like to have your story featured on an upcoming video, email the email in the description box below. I want to ask everyone to please work on some Halloween stories for this month. This is the greatest month of the year for all of us horror fans. Until we meet again, stay sinful.